I see myself as a professional athlete. Like I have to work out every single day. I have to eat, well. I have to take time out in nature. I have to meditate. I have to do breath work. I have to make sure that the energy that I bring to my time is the highest quality energy that I can. And then the money handles itself, because if you have the energy correctly and you bring it to the time correctly, then you're going to be productive and you're going to be able to do work at a very high capacity.
Hey, welcome back to the Oz Shift podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Trucks, as always, and we have another cool guest. We get to unpack their lives and hear about the cool things. Here's what I like about humanity. I like when individuals go through craziness. They navigate it, don't make an excuse to do poorly, but make an excuse to do great. And this individual did that, and they created something incredibly cool that has touched literally millions of lives. And I think these are the kind of people that we should listen to more than others, who have read books and educate yourself on stuff that's going on, and we'll call perfect little worlds. But they went into the world not only from a standpoint of the good, but also the crazy, right? And I mean that because this person went from literally jail cell gang member, which I always find that people that got that background is buried underneath somewhere. That you hit a switch, it might come out. We're not going to hit that switch today, but this person created something that impacted millions of lives, not just from the aspect of the businesses, but also from the heart and what they do now as a father, as a husband, as a business leader who's literally been involved with multi-million, close to billion, if not more, billions of dollars in business interactions. They are now in this direction of taking what they've experienced, what they've learned, and bringing it to the world of entrepreneurship and the world of just humanity. And so without further ado, we're going to unpack the heart and the mind of my man, Ryan Blair. How are you?
I'm good, Anthony. Thank you for having me. And it used to be buried somewhere in there, and I found where it was buried, and I did the deep work to get it out. But you're absolutely right; it does get buried deep inside there, and you got to make sure that you do the work to get that mud out of there.
I like it, man, because there's, and I don't know if, here's the thing, I grew up in crazy, you know my story, I'm probably sure, but after a while, it does disappear. I'm this guy, I play professional football, but if someone was a mess of my children, I could find him pretty quick. He might come rearing out, but I have no reason to use that guy at any point in time. So here's the conversation starter. It's always the same question. You could take it wherever you want, and obviously you have, literally different areas between Visalis, your new company, Alter Call, other companies with, there was a Tech 24/7, all these cool things you've done. But I want to ask this question of you. If I'm walking around LA, which Hollywood Hills, this area where you call home, and I sit down at a coffee shop, this cool looking guy who is you is sitting there, and you turn and for some reason start talking to me, in your opinion, why should I listen to you?
I guess that's a great question, but I just speak from love. And when I'm talking to people, I think that what people receive from me is that I have a genuine love. And that's the reason why I would be sharing my energy with an individual.
Yeah, I like that. It's good. And I think that's what we need more as humanity nowadays. We got a lot of that missing, dude. A lot of that joy, that love. And it's interesting because when I hear the word love, I think there is this perspective, and you probably can expand upon this. But love is not just this thing we feel, but it's also a verb. Do you find that when we talk about love, is it a way that you verbally or actionably show into the world?
It's an energy. When if I'm meeting a new person, my objective, and I wasn't always this way, this is through a lot of hard work and a lot of personal development, but my objective is to find out if they have a piece of the puzzle that I'm looking for in building the masterpiece that I'm building right now, which is, this picture of my life. And sometimes I don't know if I'm, the piece that I'm building is not very clear in the puzzle where this piece goes. And so this person might have a piece of information, a way of life or a way of being, or something that I need to, just put one piece of the puzzle together. So if you and I happen to bump into each other in a restaurant, my spiritual sense would tell me there's a reason why I'm sitting next to this man. Yeah. And I want to inquire, listen, and try to find out what that reason is. And from a place of love, of course. And I think that's my approach to meeting anyone in this day and age.
I like that. It's my wife is not a fan of it, but I do the same thing. I'll be I'll be out places and for no reason whatsoever, like I'll sit with somebody. I'm like, I want to know about them because I find there's always a story tucked inside that could benefit me in some manner, and then maybe vice versa, right? But there's always like these cool things that people experience and they never express it the way many people have chosen to. But if you can extract it, it can help you in a lot of ways. So, so with that concept, kind of we'll call it aligned. Like there's this life you've lived and you've gone through some journeys. You mind giving us, the age old, like we'll call it the old school Reader's Digest version of your story that has progressed you to the level you're at now?
Well, yeah, I will. I was raised in a family that was, to say make it politely, very low vibrational.
Okay.
Violence, drug addiction, just not an environment where my needs were met as a young child. And I grew up the hard way, and I grew up very quickly, too quickly for that matter. Mm-hmm. By the time I was 13 years old, I never saw my dad again. My mother was suffering from alcoholism, and I got caught up in a gang and was in and out of juvenile hall. And I was a fighter. I was an athlete up until 13, and then when my home life disintegrated, I took my desire to be strong athletically into street fights. And so I would get in fights nonstop, 6-7 days a week, and running with the gang. Broke my hand a number of times, was in and out of jail, arrested a number of times, and I was facing 4 years in prison when I was 17 years old. And I wrote the judge a letter begging for leniency because I knew that if I went to California State Prison, so I was 17, if I got 4 years, I'd go from juvenile to adult, and then I'd have to become a professional criminal. Because they don't allow young men like me to not, they basically force you to do despicable things once you're on the inside of those walls. And I knew that that's exactly where I was heading. And so I wrote the judge asking for leniency, and he told me, he said, son, you should be writing in college, not in prison. And at this time, I dropped out of high school. I was in and out of juvenile hall. I had not a chance in the world of doing anything in college in my perception. But when this judge told me that I could write in college, I believed I could, and I made the decision that I was going to become a writer that day. And I wrote my way out of the gang and wrote my way into entrepreneurship.
Wow.
Pretty shortly after.
That's interesting, man. That's like, I feel like there's a lot inside we haven't unpacked there. Because for you to just write a letter, now was it because the letter was so like clearly written, or what was the reason of why he thought that? Just because of the age? What was the reason that kind of gave him that thought?
Well, yes, it's a great question. So one, I was not a good writer. Well, I probably was a good writer, but I was a terrible speller.
Gotcha.
I dropped out. I went to a continuation high school my freshman year, and I dropped out my freshman year. So, never had any, formal education on the subject. But I knew that there was something inside of me that I needed to tell that judge. And what I told the judge was I would commit to being a better person. I accepted responsibility for my mistakes, and I'd said that I'd lived a very difficult life up until that point. That I did have a lot of family trauma that played a role in it, and but I took responsibility, and I showed remorse, and basically I rose above all the other people that were trying to convince that judge to let them let them go because of the amount of effort, energy, and vulnerability that I put into that piece of paper. And a lot of other people, they didn't even try. They just showed up to the judge and they had an attitude, and the judge would just send them away. I showed up to the judge with the letter, and I'll never forget, he begrudgingly got it. He was like, I don't want to read this. He sat there, he looked at it, and then all of a sudden I saw it was like an angel took him over. He became captivated, set the letter down, and he said, son, you should be writing in college, not in prison. I'm granting you leniency, but if I ever see you again, you're going to prison. And that's all I needed, man. I was scared straight. I knew if I ever saw this guy again and I didn't honor every word in that letter, that I was done. And so at that point, I had to change my entire life.
I like it, man. And while we're sitting here talking about, this was a jail type moment, I think some people do have those moments where like you woke up, like you saw, like it's a big thing to finally see yourself, see what's coming in the pipeline and go, okay, something's got to adjust, and then take an action. It probably was uncomfortable, and then you take it and something changes. Did that become, because obviously there's part of that rooted in you as you progress forward. So you said I went to college and went to entrepreneurship. What was the shift moment where you went, because this whole podcast, shift moments. What was the moment where you go, I'm in college and I'm like, I got to go to entrepreneurship? Because that's not a usual leap, especially back in the day. It wasn't a common leap because it wasn't as easy as it is now. Well, I got a mentor that was an entrepreneur, and he was very wealthy, and I was his
what they called at the time a boy Friday, which meant that I did all of his errands.
Gotcha.
I did his dry cleaning, I cleaned his car, I cleaned the barnacles off of his boat. Like I did everything he didn't want to do. And this guy was, a very rich individual. And he was an entrepreneur. And so by that time, my dad was in the middle class, but when we lost him, we went into poverty. And then from there, I had a mentor that was now wealthy. And so I'd seen all three classes. The middle was where I started, and then the poor was where I was at the time.
Yeah.
And then I saw the wealthy class, and I said to myself, well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Like, this is it. Like, it really struck to me when I realized I didn't have to be a doctor or be a lawyer, and I could be the guy that employed the doctors and the lawyers. And I was like, this is crazy. Why didn't anyone tell me this in high school that, I don't have to be a doctor or be a lawyer to employ them, right? No one told me about that career path. They just told me about the doctor and lawyer career path.
That's kind of like how Henry Ford has that whole thing, and they took him to court way back in the day. They're like, tell us about this, and asking about history. He goes, why do I need to know that if I have 16 people I can call right now on staff that can answer the question? So I like that. And I'm hearing that. I'm almost like, this sounds like it's like Rich Dad, Middle Dad, Poor Dad. It's like a whole different little book you could write because you have the different kind of aspects of it. Hey,
you know what? That's it. I never thought of it that way. That's great, man. I'm going to use that.
Hey, there you go. Write it down, dude. I just, give me a little shout out in the book when it comes out. So you take this stuff and you progress into entrepreneurship, and not only do you go into this, like, because you could have sold hats and T-shirts and simple little things. You built a multi-million dollar businesses. Tell me about the first business and what were some of the things that I guess led to it being so successful that you then maybe carried on later on.
Well, my first business wasn't very successful. It was successful in that it taught me a lot. I got it to about $1 million, but it wasn't a scalable business. I was doing computer repair, because that was all I knew how to do was repair computers. So I thought, hey, it was called 24/7 Tech, and the byline was, if your computer's a wreck, call 24/7 Tech. It was that simple. And so I was out there repairing people's computers all day long. But what I learned in that, and through building that business, I met some people that had, some venture capitalists, saw that I was a young guy trying to scale a business and was having a difficult time with it. I was trying to raise some money for the business. And they told me, absolutely not. We'll never invest in this. It's not scalable. Yeah. And that pissed me off because I was like, okay, now I have to figure out what this whole idea of scalability is. And so I swore to myself that I was going to learn this thing called scalability so that one day a venture capitalist will invest in me. My next business was indeed scalable. It was called Sky Pipeline. I did end up getting venture capital. I was 21 years old, and I built that into a $25 million business and then exited it at 24. Lost all my money that I made from that. Had to start all over again because I had this, this poor attitude. As soon as I got some money, I was bottle service and buying cars I couldn't afford and pursuing decadence, right? And I'm sure you understand that experience. I'm sure you've witnessed it in your professional career. I fell right into that trap and then started Visalis from there.
Nice. All right. That's a good, I like how you just jumped to it quickly. And I just started this other multi-million dollar business. So you learn these things, you figure stuff out. Yeah, I love it. I love that you went back to the bottom because sometimes the bottom is the best place to learn, right? Or to kind of get snapped back into position. And I think we all have that window where we kind of need to do that because you start to see how important certain things are. You're like, oh, I get it. And you go, I got it. And then I lost it. Well, that wasn't fun. Let me do it again. So I'm curious, where did the idea for Visalis come from? And then how did you grow it to be such a conglomerate, impactful business?
Well, so at Sky Pipeline, the two founders of Visalis, Nick Sarnicol and Blake Mullen, came to me and they asked me if I would help them build their business. I fell in love with the research by a guy named Dr. Michael Seidman and his products. And I thought to myself that I could, be a part of this business and help them bring it to the marketplace. I then brought on venture capital. We raised about $100 million for the business, and then turned it into a $600 million business. And, I do have to say that, I was more the strategic and operational partner. They had very strong skills in the field and marketing and in sales. And so the combination of all of us together is what made that company such a special company.
I like that. And you guys eventually, or maybe just you exited, right, at one point. I think they were still involved with it, after.
Yeah. So I I got out a little bit early, but I still retained a piece of it, and it ended up selling again not too long ago. So it's an interesting journey. But the one thing that I'll share with you is, I've just, as an entrepreneur, I've had about $2 billion that I've been able to experiment with on my journey. And so everything that I've done has just been an experiment. Some have been very successful, and some have been total failures. And so, I've had $25 million failures, I've had $100 million failures. And, with the amount of lost opportunity that I have missed as a result of some failed experiments, both failed experiments in business and then in life, I'm just simply a person here with an accumulative amount of wisdom over a 25-year period of experimentation and $2 billion worth of investment in it.
Yeah. That's actually I think the coolest part of it is that you've done things and been in places people only wish or they see, or they look in magazines and think, oh, I can't do it. And you're quite literally a story of someone doing it who, I guess in some way they'll say shouldn't have, right, statistically, but did it at a high level. And so that's why I like what I hear you're working on now, this concept of altar call, right? So it's you've chased and found and listened to many callings and created success for them. And not just for yourself, but so many other people that have been, Visalis or so many distributors you guys had that were impacting other people's lives and creating cool things, getting BMWs for their, the whole cool aspect of what you created. So with this new venture, why was it the next call for you? Why was it your altar call?
Well, I went through a major correction in my life. At 40 years old, my mother had passed away, and she had relapsed to alcoholism when my mentor had died suddenly. And so he died suddenly in my arms, in her arms. And then shortly thereafter, she relapsed. And within about 150 days, I lost both my mentor and my mother. And I channeled all of my energy into success and status seeking, which was a great strategy to get my mind off the pain that I was suffering in my family. And I also was dealing with the difficulty that my son was suffering through autism at the time. And so I had a lot of personal pressure on me and family pressure on me. And the only release that I really had two. One was partying like a rock star, which I did plenty of that. And the other was making enough money to sustain a lifestyle where I partied like a rock star, basically. When my mother passed away, I looked myself in the mirror and I said, this ends now, that I'm going to honor her. And spiritually, I knew that she could see everything I was doing. And so I knew that the stuff that I was doing was no longer cool. Like, I don't want my mom in the room when I was doing some of the stuff that I was doing. So I had this, I call it a nuclear bomb. It went off. I looked myself in the mirror and I said, I don't like the guy that I am. And with my mother's help, as she transitioned, I went and looked into the corners of my soul and my shadow and my psyche and looked for everything that I had suppressed, every piece of anger, every unhealed trauma, every father issue, mother issue, brother issue, sister, anything I could find. And I spent 2 years doing nothing but that, knowing that I would reemerge from that cave with some new wisdom and a new way of life to share with my fellow entrepreneurs. And so that was the foundation for it. I went deep into meditation and breath work and psychology and reviewed everything I'd ever read, and spent 2 years from my full-time job, 15 hours a day, was nothing but working on a new version of me to bring to the world. And when I emerged, I realized that I could really help a lot of people with this newfound knowledge that I had received.
I like this. This is how much of my story have you ever heard, or do you know? I'm assuming none, right? It's good, fair to say that you don't know who I am.
Yeah, I'm learning about it.
So I'm not gonna tell my story, but it's creepy, similar, in a sense of like I was in the NFL, had all that stuff happen, came home, opened a gym business, was making good money, and then at some point in time, I had got divorced from my ex-wife. I had 3 kids with all this stuff going on, and then I have a moment where my mom passed away when I was 30 years old from multiple sclerosis. And I had the exact same moment. I tell this from stage where, like, I woke up on New Year's Day, some strange woman in the bed, hookah on my tongue, hungover. I'm like, I hate this guy. Like, I hate this dude. And I went and I shut everything off. I canceled all men, all women, and all my homeboys I was hanging out with. I was just doing my own thing solo. And I did the same thing, bro. I dug, and it was uncomfortable, and it was icky, but then I started doing things, and fast forward 10 months, remarried my ex-wife, have an amazing marriage now. Like, we're 5 years deep in a remarriage. Like, life is vastly different. And I'm like, you're telling my story, man. It's super creepy, but really cool at the same time. And I love that you went that direction.
I tell you, man, God is a good storyteller.
Yeah, right?
I was just saying, saying God is a great storyteller, man. He works through his children, and we all have a very similar journey, although, the elements are different, but it's what they call the hero's journey. It's an archetype that all of us are going through if we accept the journey and accept the calling to go on this journey. And so it's a pleasure to know you and to know the man that you've become as a result of, the unique life experience that you've had.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. And ditto, seriously, it's always good to find a kindred heart and soul out there. And it's more than that. It's cool to know that you're taking a step further and sharing, because most people have this happen, but we keep it close to the vest because I don't want someone to see what's going on. Like, I don't want anybody to see me sweat, especially in social media. Look at me kind of world. So I love that you're like tearing it all back, saying, look, I see you because I saw me. Here's what I did. Here's how we adjust it, right? So as you progress forward and start working with entrepreneurs, I love that demographic also because it's people that have this, they're off the couch. I don't got to get you off the couch. You're off the couch, you're moving. But as you navigate this, what do you see are some of the pitfalls that as your work kind of dials in, that you're uncovering that most people do not realize they're battling on this journey?
Well, most people don't realize that they have a lot of healing to do. The way most of us were parented was it didn't fulfill our needs. We might have had good parents, but our parents didn't know any better in many cases, because just the level of consciousness in the whole subject of parenting is a relatively new concept. So most people have unfulfilled needs, or they went through trauma, or they bought into the wrong ideas about life and about the meaning of it and the importance of it and how they can operate within it. And most people have closed hearts. So the formula that I use is I help them heal, and I go deep into their healing first. And by healing, you grow. And then when you grow, you have to heal again. And the best way to describe the mentality of a successful entrepreneur is they just built a muscle. And if you've built a muscle, and you're very familiar with this based on your experience as an athlete, and so am I, it's like, if I tear this muscle and I heal it correctly, it gets stronger. And so I take them through a process of going and tearing that muscle, strengthening it, tearing the muscle, strengthening it. And eventually they built such a robust mindset and way of being that they can withstand any issue. I'll tell you that an entrepreneur's job is to solve a problem in the external marketplace. And the way you solve that external problem is by solving the internal problems. On the inside of your walls, you're going to have problems because you're dealing with people. And the more efficient you are at dealing with those problems and your own problems that you bring to the table, the more successful your team is going to be. The more successful your team is going to be, the more you can serve the outside marketplace. And so that's the formula that I utilize. We literally break down every entrepreneur. We help them go through their own transformational moments and breakthrough moments. I take them off the grid. I take them on experiences, and I go deep with them. And I participate in the success of their business. So I'm like a spiritual venture capitalist is the best way to describe it. So I have my hand in a number of businesses that are contributing good and serving humanity in a variety of different ways. And every single day I add more to the roster.
I like it. And I think it's a necessity, because what happens is I think our world, what we've been as entrepreneurs typically taught and shown and seen is like, get this new software, get this new strategy, buy this new software, get the, and a lot of people don't comprehend. I work in identity. It's actually, I think it's in a similar direction, not the same work by any means, but I find it's kind of like, well, everybody's trying to get the right tool, but you haven't realized like that maybe you're not the right person to wield the tool yet. Maybe there's some like, it's like giving a baby a hammer saying, go build a house. Like, yeah, you got all the tools, man, but you can't do anything with it. And I love that you're going in and unpacking this. Do you find it's hard to get people to buy into this, or is someone coming to you at the right time? Like, where do you find the people who are, because think about yourself. I'm sure at some point, if someone came to you and said, hey, Ryan, do this, you'd be like, get out of here. Like, how do you reach the people who they need it, but they don't know they need it yet?
Well, I resisted it, and then my life got to a point where I was open. And so I need a person that's open. And generally people are open when they go through a life change. It could be that their children have leave the house, they're empty nesters. Could be that they've got, a promotion, they're selling a business, they're thinking about selling their business. So they're going through some sort of a life change. And the good news is we're always going through life changes as individuals. So those are the primary people that I work with. But I do want to share with you a simple breakdown that I've learned as an entrepreneur. Execution, as we all have always said, is everything. The idea doesn't matter. Execution is everything. Every great leader will tell you that. But when you look at what is execution is knowing what to do, knowing how to do it, and then actually do it.
True.
Most people I find that have a high degree of competence, they know what to do. Like, you could go buy a book on what to do. You got to start a company, you got to get a website, you got to do this, you got to do that. they may not know how to do it, but we can certainly find people that know how to do the stuff in our what to do list, but they still don't do it.
True.
And why don't they still do it? It's because something inside of them is sabotaging their capacity. They have bought into a series of beliefs. They bought into a level of confidence about themselves that isn't accurate. They bought into some lies. And so we have to strip away in identity work, and you and I are on the same path on that. We have to strip away and have them realize that it is not the skill that's the issue. It's the fact that they have not developed a vessel capable of acquiring the skill.
Yeah.
And one of the big challenges in personal growth right now is you have all these gurus selling skill packages, how to, be a coach, how to be this, how to be that. And most people, they buy these products and they don't do anything with them because their soul is not in a place where it is capable of actually utilizing these tools that are available in the marketplace. So I work with the entrepreneur to get themselves into position where they can adapt and acquire skills at a very fast pace. And then, the sky is the limit, because you wake up every single day and you say, okay, there's a gap today between where I'm at and where I want to be. Mm-hmm. What skills do I need to acquire? And then you acquire the skills.
Yeah.
And you could acquire any skill you want with that mindset and that approach.
It's almost like peeking around in my brain. I don't know where you've been all my life, man, but I like your mind. It's super. So I actually talk about in my book I wrote recently called Identity Shift, Identity Gaps. You talk about that gap, right? Closing one side to the other. And you said a word earlier that I've really spent some time unpacking for people, but it's the word capacity. And I think our identity shows up in different areas, right? It shows up in the mind, how we think, how we flow, like up at, in the clouds. Then it's actually in the brain, right? The brain is the neurons, how they fire. Like there's actually neuroplasticity and all, it rewires. And then you have the body, the actions we take, exactly what you're saying. And I got a workshop I'm doing tomorrow talking about capacity. And the capacity, interesting definition, is a person's physical and mental ability to power production, performance, and operation. So if you don't have the capacity, you have low capacity, poor performance, poor operation, poor production. So you can't get that thing that you want, And so you're saying the same thing with different words, and I love it. Man, yeah, we could talk. We could have a beer one day, bro. I'd have a blast picking your brain.
I'll give you a hug if I was here, brother. If you ever need a guest speaker or you ever want to do work together, I'm all for it. Yeah. I take a very spiritual approach to the work that I do.
I like that.
And my goal is to help as many people as I possibly can during my lifetime alter their lives to answer their calling. Yeah. I believe entrepreneurs are the most heroic individual in society. We are creating the jobs. We're innovating. We are the ones that are going to solve the problems that humanity is faced with right now. Yeah. And so I want to just be a champion of entrepreneurs and teach them how to put themselves in position to fulfill the unique calling that they have on their hearts.
I like that, man. And then we need that. That is what everybody, because there's like a different fulfillment that takes place when you're doing things in a place of joy and you're actually putting the vision out of the world. Because if not, you're wanting it so bad you don't have it. You start questioning your purpose because you lack the progress, and that becomes it's a dark little thing. Yeah. And it's funny. I have this thought too, and I've navigated this. Part of my reason my marriage fell apart was I worked a whole lot, right? I was a guy that at a certain point realized, okay, execution. I started doing this stuff, and I noticed one of the articles that I read or kind of noticed on you was talking about having that balance, the ability to be an entrepreneur, but also be a present dad. I don't know. I haven't told you this. My wife, she has her master's in special education. She is for businesses specifically for special needs, for autism, and on the spectrum. So I understand this crazy world of all these little things. So how did you find, or maybe how do you do it now? Once someone's getting emotion, how do they not ruin their life as they start executing?
Well, your primary job in life is to manage and maintain the highest degree of positive energy you can. That's the job. Yeah. I see myself as a professional athlete. I have to work out every single day. I have to eat, well. I have to take time out in nature. I have to meditate. I have to do breath work. I have to make sure that the energy that I bring to my time is the highest quality energy that I can. And then the money handles itself. Because if you have the energy correctly and you bring it to the time correctly, then you're going to be productive and you're going to, be able to do work at a very high capacity. Most entrepreneurs get the energetic thing wrong. Yeah. And the things that fuel me up and bring me the greatest joy in life are spending time with my son, is spending time in nature. If I don't do those things, the time that I spend in my business is going to be low vibrational, low energy. I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to be grumpy. I'm not going to enjoy it. Yeah. But this call that you and I are having, the reason why I can have the smile on my face that I do, even though I've done plenty of work today, is because I've already meditated, I've grown, I've read books, I've got into ideas and I've talked to people that inspire me. I've worked out, and now I'm here to share, right? So I can bring a tremendous amount of energy to my time. Therefore, my time is much more efficiency. And the reason why I can do that is because I spend a minimum every day, 7 days a week, of 3 hours on me doing the deep interpersonal work. And that is, I do not compromise on that. Yeah. And then I spend a ton of time with my son, and I get the best feedback. He's 12 going on 13. Yeah. I get the best feedback as a leader ever from him. You know, he helps me understand the true meaning of life, the purpose of life. He helps me understand things about myself that I would not understand. So, you know, I'm receiving so much by spending time with him that I think can contribute to the people that I mentor and to the, you know, the company that I operate, right? So to me, it's all integrated. Yeah. None of it is separated. My time and my energy and my family are all one, and the purpose of my life is to be able to share and to give. And if I'm not sharing and giving with my family because I'm sharing and giving to my team, that's a tragedy. Like, I should be sharing and giving with my family even more because of the time that I do spend with my team, not less. And it's so important to integrate our children and integrate our family into the work that we're doing, so they see it as their opportunity, as they see it as their company as well. Yeah. And so that's the method that I've utilized to find harmony. I don't know that I'm balanced. You know, I'm very disciplined now. Yeah. And I would say that most people would describe it as balanced. But I do find imbalances. There'll be days where I'm a little tired and I'm like, okay, I need to, you know, pull back and sleep a little bit more. There are days where I might be grumpy in a meeting and I go, okay, I need to, you know, do some trigger work and you know, and reset myself and you know, be more humble or meditate some more. Yeah. And so I'm constantly fine tuning the system. And every single day though, I'm running a system. Yeah. And you do that enough days consecutively, and eventually the whole world is yours. I mean, I have more joy and more happiness and more productivity than I've ever had. And I'm more generous than I've ever been with my time, with my children, and with the philanthropic endeavors that I do. And it's all because I have been working on a personal system of self-mastery now for 4 years straight, every single day dialing it in.
Yeah, I like it. And that's what you're sharing with the world. It's funny you said the word harmony, because I do not agree with balance. I think I have what's called hustle harmony. The hustle in my marriage and my health and my parenting, but it's like this harmony. Sometimes the beat may be heavier on business and then heavier on the relationship and heavier, you know, but it's all got its own, you know, tune. But finding that rhythm that works for me is the most beautiful part of this. As you were saying something, like my brain went to this pod, because I always listen, like, you know, what would the person listen and say? What would be the devil's advocate thought? And I go, man, it sounds good to have the time to be able to hang with the family. There's a lot of people I'm sure say, man, Ryan, it sounds good, but I didn't sell a business. I don't have, you know, millions of dollars to be able to have this freedom. And I think it's a cop-out, because I have heard people say this to me, like, I didn't play in the NFL, Anthony. I didn't build this. I got to work right now. I got to sacrifice. Like, what do you say to that person who is in that space where it's like, they feel this, well, I don't have what you had, so you're talking from a different place?
Well, the reason why I have what I have is because I made the choice to educate myself and to acquire the skills necessary. Yeah. And, you know, when we talk about the gap, you know, I saw, like, if I met a guy like me and I was like, he has something that I want that I don't have. It could be a lifestyle, it could be a house, it could be whatever. And what he has is, you know, I find no excuses. I'd say there's an information gap, there's an education gap, or there's a skill gap, or there's some sort of a personality gap here. And then I just go to work to fill the gap as fast as I possibly could. Yeah. And so the attitude where you look at people and say, here's the excuse as to why they have something that I don't. And when I say have, I don't just mean material things. You know, they may have love with their children that I don't have. Well, how do I get that? Right? And so be a student. You know, ask the people that have what you want in life how to get it. They'll oftentimes tell you the exact formula and the exact framework that you need to apply, and then spare no time and energy applying it. You have more time than you think. If you look at all the time that people waste on social media, on Netflix, on just nonsense, and you were to recapture some of that time and apply it toward filling the gap in your life, whether it be your financial gap, your spiritual gap, your health gaps, your mindset gaps, whatever those gaps are that you have, you can close them quickly if you just make the decision that you're going to close those gaps and you're going to do whatever it takes to do so.
Yeah, I like it, man. I think it's a different mindset, you said. Like, it's a different mentality to that, right? It's not accepting this as the limiting factor and assuming, well, can't do that, because then it's a wall you never climb, so you never get to see on the backside. But you're saying, hey, find a way to climb the wall, like retune the mind, reshape things. How much how much of it needs to be tied to having some mentorship, some guidance, some person to lean on? Because I know at times, man, it sounds good. And like you're talking about mindset. There are days when people wake up, self-included, I'm like, I don't want to do it. But there are people I can tap into that give me a little bit of a push.
Mentorship is everything. It is the the number one denominator that all successful people have, basically. Like if you were to extract it down, every successful person has had to have a mentor, to get to that level of success. So mentorship is the most important thing. Now, the key is to pursue mentors. I pursue new mentors all the time. I read a book and I reach out to the author. And this is before I had any notoriety or success behind me. I would reach out to the author, and I would be constantly seeking to add mentors to my life. And so my mindset is no excuses. If this person has information I want, I'm going to try to get a hold of them. If they don't reply to me, I'll go get a hold of someone else. Yeah. And when I see somebody doing something in the world that I admire, I reach out to them and let them know and see if there's a way that we can have a conversation and perhaps a value exchange. That's the process that I've used from the very beginning of my career, and I still use that process today.
I like it, man. And that's the same as me. It's funny. It's back years ago when I was leaving the NFL. I was like, I got this. I don't need any help. And I went into the world of business, fell on my face. And I was like, what's the difference? Why was I so successful? I was like, I had a coach back then. Because most of the time, like, you can see I can see the person in front of me. I could always see the player in front of me, but the coach could see the field. I was like, yeah. I got to go get this guy to help, or girl, whoever it might be. Man, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Yeah. Those who are listening, going, I like this guy. Like, who's the perfect fit for the Altar Call program? Who's the person that when you think about, you close your eyes, maybe current clients you have, who's that person? Where are they at when it comes time to look at this and go, it's fine for me?
I'm looking for leaders that want to change culture. And change culture by way of creating an entrepreneurial vehicle that solves an important problem in humanity, and doing it in such a way that it betters not only themselves, but their team members, their customers, and then everyone that company touches and beyond. Yeah. So I'm looking for people that really have a deep purpose in their lives, and they see their entrepreneurial vehicle as a way to do that. The people that I mentor directly, and I do have a number of businesses that I have my hands in, these are generally individuals that they're major change makers, and they want to do so in a very conscious way, and they want to make a huge impact in their lives. And so, I work with businesses that have hundreds of employees, and I help them not only do the self-mastery that I described earlier, and then extend that self-mastery into business mastery, and then into their team mastery, and then into the marketplace mastery.
Yeah, I like it. That's good. That's obviously, it's good to know who you're talking to, right? So someone can self-select and go, it's time for me. Yeah. If this person's listening, where do I send them? Where do they go find you?
You can catch me at altarcall.com. It's ALTERCALL.com. Or you can just reach out to me on IG. I'm at Real Ryan Blair. And if you DM me, we'll have a conversation.
I like it. All right, man. Ready for the final question?
Yes, sir.
Here goes. What promise did God make to the world when he created you?
Well, I'm here to inspire. So you said, this is my son, Ryan, and he's going to go through hell and back, and he's going to create quite a story of inspiration along the way. And I know that my legacy will be measured in a way where I have no idea. It'll be long after I'm gone that somebody picks up my book and decides to run for president and change the world. It'll be something that I've done, or some company that I have an indirect involvement in that goes out there and makes a change. So I don't worry too much about my present legacy, because I know that the work that I'm doing is going to affect change in the world and create quite a lot of inspiration in the system.
I like it, man. It's beautiful. I love it, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed hanging out with you and talking to you, man. I appreciate your time, seriously, because I know it's not cheap time, we'll call it, right? You've done the work to get to the point of having value. So thank you so very much for coming and hanging. Those of you guys who were tuned in, thank you for hanging out with us. The way I look at it is we took something from you, time from your life. And in doing so, I always want to make sure we give something great back. And I have no doubt that Ryan did that. Make sure that if you have someone in your life who needs to hear this, share the episode. A little simple share button goes out to the rest of the world. And if not, someone directly share it. If it was in any way valuable to you, or you found some cool nugget, pop it into your stream, let the rest of the world see it. And that's it. As always, make the most of your off shift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and Ryan Blair signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning into the Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.